Mexico's president seemingly defending the country's drug cartels this week. President Andres Manuel López Obrador calling Mexico's criminal drug gangs and cartels, quote, respectful people, telling reporters at a news briefing Thursday that, quote, fortunately, the attacks that happen in this country generally occur between criminal groups. They respect the citizenry. Obrador's claims blatantly at odds with the reality of Mexican cartels' acts of killing and kidnapping Mexican citizens who refuse to give them money and smuggling massive amounts of fentanyl into the U.S. Overdoses from the drug are now the #1 killer of Americans 18 to 45. Just this week, the DEA announcing 15 arrests and the seizure of 10 million lethal doses of fentanyl from a Mexican drug trafficking network operating in Southern California. To talk more about this and other border issues, we're bringing in Ron Vitiello now, former chief of U.S. Border Patrol, former ICE director, and former acting deputy commissioner of Customs and Border Protection. It's a mouthful, but there's no one better to talk about it. Good evening, Ron.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on.
What do you make of Mexico's president's most recent comments here? Drug cartels being respectful people who respect the citizenry.
Another unaccountable failed leader of Mexico. There is no such thing as a compassionate drug cartel. These cartels deal in poison and misery, and for him to coddle them as he has just puts him and his country. He has no credibility in this area, and it puts his whole country at risk. He's coddling these folks. He has been for quite some time.
You know, I want to ask and drill down on some of these comments. President Obrador has said about the cartels, quote, you can't fight violence with violence, and has also said cartel members become criminals because of lack of opportunity. What is President Obrador's motives for saying things like this as cartels continue to kill scores of Mexicans? Is there truth to what he is saying, or are there political advantages or motives for him to spin this narrative?
Well, he's a weak leader. He doesn't want to take them on because it would be very difficult to do. And he's not willing to risk his own reputation or his political aspirations for, bringing the rule of law back to Mexico. So, yeah, there's a domestic political angle here, but he's just weak.
How should the United States approach a relationship with President Obrador?
We should leverage for his help. They are our #1 trading partner. We are their #1 trading partner. There's a lot of leverage between the governments. It's in their interest to have the rule of law in Mexico. It's in their interest to control the border between them and Guatemala. It's in their interest to stop these cartels and put them back in their place. They traffic in misery, in human beings, in drugs. They're killing Americans by the thousands.
Ron, I do want to ask you about this. This was interesting. A San Diego County supervisor saying that San Diego is now the new epicenter for illegal migration, despite migrant encounters being higher in the Tucson and Del Rio sectors, at least of this last month. Do you agree with what he's saying? And does that mean that immigration enforcement initiatives are working in Texas and Arizona?
Well, the Texas has put up, the razor wire, the barriers. They've passed some laws to help assist the Border Patrol. So the traffic has definitely moved out west. San Diego is seeing numbers that they've never seen before because the border is in real chaos because of the policies of the current administration. So San Diego and the people that live there are living the effects of the chaos and the lawlessness that exists on our border.
Ron, I do want to ask you about some reporting that we were doing here last weekend. We had a tribal leader on the show who was talking about how cartels, specifically the Sinaloa cartel, are moving into states and reservations in states like Montana. Just how concerning it is. Selling fentanyl, a single pill for $120, when in urban areas it would only be $1 or $5. What are you tracking here? What is the concern about the foothold that cartels are starting to establish in reservations?
Well, again, they deal in misery. They're violent and vicious, and it's going to affect every American. When the border is out of control like this, the cartels are taking advantage in every single way. They're trafficking in people. They're trafficking in drugs. And let's face it, the Border Patrol is in the position now where they're dealing with this humanitarian crisis. They're doing what they must do to address the traffic that comes to them. But that leaves the border wide open, and it advantages the cartels greatly.
All right. Ron Vitiello, always appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.